Learning how to select the scale that will work best with a particular dominant chord changes everything in your sound. So I have a couple of rules for this, which I'm going to share with you. And then we're going to see how we apply them to a tune as well. This isn't going to be a phrase building video. We have others, and I'm sure we'll do more in the future. This is about selecting the notes which will keep you out of trouble. Now, are there other choices? Yeah, sure. And people always want to post and tell me either that I've missed one or that they've got another one that they use, and that's fine. And I do use some extras as well. But these are the ones I can't live without. And these are the ones that if I only had these, I could still play. So that's what I'm sharing with you today. Let's get into it. So it's all about what happens after the dominant chord, and that's how I choose my scales. This is what I mean. Let's say you've got a G7 going to C major, any kind of C major, whether it's a 6 or a 7, then that G7 is there because it is the fifth of C major, right? So you've got alternate notes on the C major scale. So it makes sense that your scale, which I would call G7, yes, it has the same notes as C major, but it's slightly different. If you studied with Barry Harris, you'll know, but we cover that in other lessons. It has some differences because of what it outlines on the beat. I'll just quickly say that in C major, these notes are on the beat. In the G7 scale, these notes are on the beat, and your phrases tend to keep it that way some of the time. And also when we add extra chromatic notes, they differ between the two scales. That's why, in a nutshell. But that's why I would choose a straight G7 scale, nothing different. Now, there are other choices, but that would be the straightforward choice. Now, if G7 is going to any kind of C minor, then I would take the C harmonic minor scale. This is something I've spoken about before as well so far. So if I take the chord on the fifth of the C harmonic minor scale, I still end up with a G7. So you see, G7 is the fifth of C major, but it's also the fifth of C minor. And looking ahead at what's coming up tells me which sound the G7 is trying to outline. In other words, we've chosen strategic notes and created a dominant chord in order to introduce the sound of what's coming next. So on that second one, I'd take the C harmonic minor. These sorts of phrases, that kind of sound, right? Before a major. Doesn't mean we can't use these notes. We can actually on it before a major as well. But the default is G7 for me. Okay, it's not wrong to play the C harmonic minor one, even if you're going to a C major. That seems to sound okay. So for example, but for me, it doesn't seem to work well to take the standard G7 scale that comes from C major and then go to C minor. That sound I'm not so happy with, right? So again, these are the simple rules I can't live without. They can be a little bit malleable, as I just pointed out. Now, if you've got a G7 that's going to another dominant that's going to C7, I find that either of these work, a G7 from a C harmonic minor scale or a G7 from a C major scale. However, my default, and the default for Barry that he used to teach us as well, for Barry Harris, was the standard G7 scale, which would be just G major with a flat 7, right? Those are the three rules. Not very complicated. It's all about looking at what's coming next. If you're going G7 to C major, by default, take a displaced C major scale, even though you could take a displaced harmonic minor scale in that case as well. If you're going G7 to C minor, definitely take the displaced minor scale. Doesn't sound so good for me to say. It doesn't have to sound completely ugly, but it's not authentic. So I just don't do that. If you're going G7 to C7, either work, but the default will be a straight G7 scale. Just like in the blues, right? Now let's see some applications on All of Me, because it's got all of this stuff, which is maybe why it's called All of Me. Let's see. So these are the simple chord changes. I just scribbled them out, a little bit messy. But you see, we've got just talking about dominants, right? E7, A7, E7, G7, oh, and D7 as well. Those are the ones we're focusing on. So the first dominant go to another dominant. And remember, we said that the default for that is the straight dominant scale, but you could use a displaced harmonic minor as well. Let me explain that in more detail. Straight dominant scale is just a major scale, E major, with a flat 7. Okay, so that's the one you get on the 5th of A major. And some people will call it a mixolydian. Fine. For me, because I studied with Barry, it's the E7 scale. So that would be my default. Fine. But we also said when we're going dominant to dominant, we could use either. If you're enjoying this lesson, would you please give it a like and subscribe to the channel? Hit the notification bell so you know when there's a new video. A positive comment in the comments section really helps as well. And if it's time to level up your playing and get some freedom, then consider joining us on Jazz Skills. More about that at the end. For now, let's get back to the lesson. So I should be able to get a decent sound from E7 as if it was going to an A minor. And if it was going to an A minor, I would take the A harmonic minor scale. So let's see what that sounds like. C major, A harmonic, fine. I'm quite happy with that sound as well. However, the next E7 we get is definitely going to minor. It's not going to major or dominant. And so there I definitely want the A harmonic minor on the E7. That's going to be an A harm, we'll call it, right? Oh, and by the way, the A7 is also going to a minor. It's going to D minor. So because that A7 is also going to a D minor, that'll be a D harmonic minor scale on that A7. So here's D harmonic minor. So if I go from the beginning, C major. I'm taking the A harmonic minor on that E7. Now D harmonic minor. We're not talking about these today. E7 with an A harmonic minor. Back to A minor, right? Not the A minor scale, just an A minor chord. Now D7, if it's not going to either, then just take a D7 scale. The function for more advanced people is D7 to G7, because this 5 progression means 5. So D7 is functionally going to G7, but that's for maybe more advanced people. So it'll just be the straight D7 scale, which is this scale. So on the next G7, you've just got a straight G7 scale because that's definitely going back to a C major for the second section. And that's how I choose dominant scales. Hope you enjoyed that. And if it's time to level up your playing, then come and join us on Jazz Skills, where we won't drown you in information, but we'll focus on your transformation step by step and skill by skill with what to practice, in which order to get fluent. And then we look at improvisation, chord movements, voicings, all kinds of stuff with help from me and a vibrant community as well. Take care. Bye for now.